very much, everybody, and on everyone's behalf, can I say a massive welcome, a Glenstal welcome to Sonia O'Sullivan. This is what's called a red letter day for our school, to have someone who means so much to the Irish people for all her accomplishments and achievements. More of that in a moment, but by way of a Glenstal and an Irish welcome, and welcome back, as it were, Owen's going to play for us on score. Thank you, Owen.
Hello everyone, my name is Gerard Hartman. My son Patrick Hartman is the first year, he's here somewhere. I've brought Sonia here to meet you all, and she's excited about meeting you. She's heard all about Glenstal Abbey School. Now, where were we today, Sonia? We were at a monastery, but it wasn't Glenstal. Did any of you hear of Brian Boru? King Brian Boru? You did your history. So today, we went by kayak to Holy Island on Lough Derg. Sonia and I, we kayaked to a very old monastery. So in 1014, the Battle of Clontarf. You all remember that from history? Well, Brian Boru's brother was the abbot on Holy Island in the years preceding 1014. And your abbot, Abbot Brendan, is after giving Sonia O'Sullivan a glorious tour of the monastery, the gardens, the icon church, and all the wonderful facilities here. Yesterday, I was here at Mass with my family, and what a beautiful Mass it was. Father Dennis Hooper, it was a gorgeous homily, and I must say, the music, the choir, since September, it's like unbelievable. You're doing something fantastic here. Every one of you students, each one of you have talents. Sometimes we don't realise the talents we have. When I went to secondary school, I was useless in sport. I couldn't kick a football, I couldn't play basketball. On second year, the sports master took 9 of us out to try some running. And he took 5 of us to North Munster Sports. And I won the 800 metres and set a record that lasted 21 years. Had that talent not been nurtured, I wouldn't be here today. Because I went on from that, dreaming of going to Olympic Games. I wasn't good enough, but I found a way. I went to 7 Olympic Games as a physio. And I go back to the year I qualified. I was doing a practicum at the University of Florida in Gainesville. A young girl from Cove, outside Cork, was on a running scholarship at the University of Villanova. There was a girl from Limerick at the University of Tennessee. There was a boy from Killorglin at the University of Kentucky. And I looked out for them because I was one of the physios providing services at this athletic meet with maybe 20 universities competing. I found this girl from Cove and she was down on herself because she was injured. She couldn't compete, but the coach brought her on the weekend trip to keep her interest alive because he saw she had a talent. I chatted to that girl. I never heard of her before, but I could see she was passionate about wanting to be good. She wanted to go to the Olympic Games for Ireland. And I told her the two great things you need to think about: patience and time. Your talent won't desert you. Give it time, give it patience. And when I was a young boy, I wrote into my diary every year a poem. A training diary. So the year before I did my leaving cert, a poem called Don't Quit. Because as we'll hear from Sonia, to get to be a world champion, it didn't happen by chance. There was ups, there was downs. And in life, whether it's in academics, whether it's in sport, whether it's with your music, there are going to be ups and downs. And it's how we handle those things in life. Play the long game, don't quit. And this poem I wrote into my diary every single year until I was 31 years of age. Why? Because I knew it wouldn't be all up. I'd have to be ready to deal with the downs. So I'll read this poem before I introduce Sonia, because through her career, we cheered her on when she won, but the Irish people were there when she was down. Don't quit. When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile, but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. Life is queer with its twists and turns, as every one of us sometimes learns, and many a fellow turns about when he might have won had he stuck it out. Don't give up, though the pace seems slow. You may succeed with another blow. Often the goal is nearer than it seems to a faint and faltering man. Often the struggler has given up when he might have captured the victor's cup. And he learned too late, when the night came down, how close he was to that golden crown. Success is failure turned inside out, the silver tint of the clouds of doubt, and you can never tell how close you are. It may be near when it seems so far. So stick to the fight when you're hardest hit. It's when things seem worst that you mustn't quit. And that to me signals Sonia O'Sullivan's career. 1992, 2 years after I met her, she was at the Olympic Games in Barcelona and she came fourth. 1993, 1994, multiple European titles. But in 1995, think of this, up to 1995, no woman, Irish woman, had ever succeeded on the global stage. Meaning, Sonia O'Sullivan, who's here today, is the first world champion. She led the way for success for people like our boxing champions, Katie Taylor, Kelly Harrington. She led the way and inspired all those sports stars. The number on her vest that day, 495 in Gothenburg, Sweden. I have that in my clinic. Signed by Sonia O'Sullivan. 5,000 metres in 14 minutes and 46. Not alone did she inspire the women. She ran as fast as I ever ran. She got us thinking. And that's the champion we have here today. Ireland's first ever champion. Every one of you have a talent. Everyone has a talent. God-given talent. There's billions and billions and trillions of talent cells here today. You've got to believe in yourself. You've got to follow your star and do in life what you want to do, what you want to achieve. And I know here in this beautiful Glenstall Abbey School, somewhere there's a poem on the wall. Somebody sent it to me. Somebody who was doing a retreat here a few weeks ago sent me the very poem that I give to my patients. I'm a physiotherapist for the last 33 years. Like Sonia, Olympic athlete, Olympic medalist, I have treated 73 Olympic medal winners, multiple world champions. They have all highs to win, but they sometimes go low because when it's robbed from them through injury, the very thing they want to do, they get very low. But I always give them a printed out version of Follow Your Star. Does anyone know that poem? Hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's on your wall in this very school. I had an art teacher, Dr. Colin Maguire, and every class he started the class with a statement. He was from Monaghan. He had a very droll accent, and he started by saying, if you don't look, you won't see. And if you can't see, you can't draw. Look around you guys. Look at your own talents. Respect them. And he always said as well, halfway through the class, if you don't listen, you won't hear. And if you don't hear, you won't learn nothing. So listen. And that's one of the ingredients that Sonia O'Sullivan always has had. She always reached out to coaches, to mentors, always wanting to be better. She was looking for marginal gains to be that world champion, but she listened to her mentors, to the people she trusted, and that was important. So just before I hand over to Sonia, and she's going to give you a lovely, lovely appraisal of sport, follow your star, whatever it is. Don't be easily put down by the pessimist's frown. The goal that you set in whatever line, if you believe you can do it, hope must never decline. Though others may try to push you aside, be steadfast, be resolute, go with confident stride. To some measure of failure, you may have to succumb. No distress, no depression, success will soon come. Your very own person, resolve now to be, and your star you will reach. Just try it and you will see. To our great champion, hand over to Sonia O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Jared, for fine memories there of the early days and when I first crossed paths with Jared. And I think it's, I suppose, true to life in that, you know, Jared was there in the early days of my career when I didn't even know that, you know, running could be a career or that that would be my life as it is right up until now. And we have remained true friends the whole time because I think mainly because we've both followed our dreams, we've both found something that we truly love to do in life. Jared through physiotherapy and beyond that, inspiring and mentoring athletes and not just runners but athletes across all sports in Ireland and all around the world. And you know, I think when I started out running, I didn't have that love of running that people talk about. I just like to run races, I like to win races. And I think it was one of those things that I kind of grew into. And then when I eventually got to the end of my career, I was thinking, well, what do I do now? And I realised that running was such a huge part of my life that I wanted to keep doing it forever. I tried to do other things. I went swimming and cycling and just looking for other things to do because I wasn't still winning at the end. And you know, sometimes you think it's all about winning. And it is for a while, but then you realise that it's not all about winning, but it's what the things that you do to get to this stage and to perform and to do the best that you can. So, you know, Jared said I had my ups and downs. I always view it as a bit of a roller coaster of a career. You know, the highs of '92 in Barcelona, I finished fourth in the Olympics at 3,000 metres, and I surprised myself. You know, it was a time where I suppose in a way I would look at a start list of a race and my name would stand out like it didn't belong there. And then after finishing fourth in the Olympics, I kind of thought to myself, if I knew I was going to be fourth, then I definitely would have been in the top three. But I just didn't have the belief and the confidence to do that. And you know, these things, you can't go back and run those races all over again. And I think that's something that I've always had about me, is that I rarely look back. I like to look forward all the time and always want to do the next thing, and always rushing on to the next thing, that sometimes I didn't even appreciate what I was actually doing at the time. And it was only years later, particularly after the 96 Olympics. So in 1995, I was a world champion for 5,000 metres. I had a few world records and lots of Irish records. And, you know, I suppose you could say I failed terribly at the Olympics in 1996. And, you know, it was like, where do I go from here? And for me, I went out there and I tried really hard to make up for the errors that I made in 1996. And by trying too hard, I forgot to stand back and to, you know, kind of put aside what I had done before and realise it's different, because you're not the same person all the time, you're evolving all the time. And sometimes you have to stop and you have to start again. And you have to take a different route, a different path. You know, you don't always, just because you decide to go down one path doesn't mean you have to keep going that way. Sometimes you keep doing the same things over and over again, and you think you might get different results, but you often don't. So you have to stop and take account of where you're at, reset, restart, and refocus, and look at where to go. And, you know, it was always one of those things, every year there's a championship, whether it's a European championship, a world championship, or the Olympic Games, and you set your plan out for the year. And for me, I would always look, okay, well, the Olympics is here, now let's work backwards and see how can I get up there as best as possible. And, you know, you can't just take one big giant leap and think, okay, I've qualified for this now, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to, you know, compete with the best in the world. You have to take the small steps along the way. And, you know, the more steps that you take along the way, the more things that you learn, the more solid of a grounding that you have. And when you stand on the start line, no matter what it is that you're doing in life, once you decide to do something, if you've put in the work, and you know you've put in the work, then there's no fear. You just go out there and you're going to do the best that you possibly can. So when I came to the Sydney Olympics in 2000, I was running 5,000 metres. I'd been there before in 96, it didn't work out. Sydney was my third Olympics, and I just felt that this is, for me, you know, it's third time lucky. You have to put a little bit of luck in there, as well as the hard work and the commitment and the effort. And I just wanted to, for me, it was all about just going out there and doing the best that I could. It didn't matter what the result was. I knew I had put in all the hard work, and I needed to reward myself for that work. And that didn't have to be in the form of a medal. That was a bonus to do that. So I didn't put any pressure or expectation on myself. I just knew that I'd worked hard and I deserved to get a result that I could be happy with, that I could be proud of, and that I could walk away satisfied. And I think that's the biggest thing that, you know, we can all do in life, is to work hard and then to be satisfied with the challenges that we set ourselves, the things that we go after, and, you know, the dreams that we fulfill. So that was kind of me in a nutshell. I was always trying to be the best that I could be, and, you know, I suppose always trying, really, sometimes trying too hard. I know Gerard would oftentimes pull me back and say, you've got to, you know, it's not all about going as fast as you can, as hard as you can all the time. Sometimes you have to slow down and you have to take your time to get there, take the small steps. And it's one of the things that I do now. I'm now coaching a number of athletes who compete on the world stage. A few of them were in the Olympic Games last year. And the one thing that we're constantly saying to the athletes is to slow down and don't be in too much of a rush to get to the finish line. That you have to take all the steps along the way. The small little 1% things that will make you that little bit better all the time. So it's not just all about going out there and being, you know, if I go out, say, on the golfing range and I have I stand up on the tee box and I I try really hard, and I'm like really giving it socks, really giving it belt to the ball. And if I talk to Padraig Harrington, he'd probably say to me, relax, take it easy, take your time. It's not about the aggression and the power and the strength that you're putting into it, but it's just taking your time and connecting with the ball. So you really have to get that sweet spot of what you're trying to do. I went out to play golf with a friend of mine one time, and I was more used to going with the hurley and the slitter with my dog, and I was lashing the ball, and I could pick a tree and I could hit the ball and I could get it right on it. And I thought, yeah, I can do this really well, so of course I can go and play golf. And I went out there and I went for the first shot, and I was visualising it. I was visualising the hole is down here, it's going to take me 3 shots to get it down there. And I was lining myself up, and I was thinking all the power and strength that I had, and the ball had just like trickled off the tee, and I was so disappointed. So I'm not very good at golf. And that's why I'm still running. And yesterday I was down in Cove, where I'm from. We had a 10-mile road race down there. And I realised that running is the one thing that I truly love. And even I'm organising a road race, getting people to come down and run the race around the streets of Cove to showcase our beautiful town. For me to have the chance to run the race is something that I wanted to do. But the thing that was most important to me yesterday was that I could get into the town and be in a position where I was feeling great, I was happy, I was smiling, waving to the crowd, so I wasn't going to kill myself. So I was out there running with Robert Heffernan, an Olympic bronze medalist for the 50k walk and world champion at 50k walk from Cork also, of course. We have great water down there. And so we were running along together, and because I knew the course, because I've run all my training runs down through the years, I knew what was coming. So I was holding back the whole time. And I was kind of, no, we've got to pace ourselves here, there's a little hill coming up here. And I knew that there was a downhill into the town at the very last 500 metres. So I was holding. And then I knew that once I got there, that, you could just let loose and fly down into the town. And it was like old times, the people were out there, the sun was shining, the cheering, the crowd, and you never lose that feeling. You're not running as fast, but that feeling of doing what you love the most. And, giving pleasure to people is what I enjoy the most. And I think that's what you have to find, what you enjoy doing the most, and what you take most pleasure from, and what people who are in your corner will support you to get the best out of yourself and to follow your dreams. And that's it. But if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them. And, wish you all the best.
Hands up, you have a question? Yeah, Peter, myself, stand up.
What are your thoughts on the controversy surrounding the so-called super spikes at the Tokyo Olympics?
Well, they're beyond the Tokyo Olympics at this stage. I think it's a new technology that, running has taken a long time to use new technology and to help them to run faster times. Cyclists have been doing it for years with the carbon fibre bikes, and now we've got the carbon fibre plates in the shoes. I think you can't really compare a lot of the times from athletes. I say it's pre-carbon, or before carbon. So I'd say all my Irish records and all my fast times were BC, before carbon. So anyone who runs times after that, then they have a little star beside it and say, well, they had the special shoes. And I can tell you the shoes, they definitely work, because I've worn them myself, and it gives you a new lease of life to go out there and run in those shoes. I think they're here to stay, so we have to accept them now. And, it's levelling out, everybody can use these shoes now. And, it's just a new era in running to have better shoes to help the athletes to run faster. But if you look way back, to early years, maybe even when Gerard was running in the 70s, and the tracks were nowhere near as good as they are now. They were running on cinder tracks, and before that they were running on grass tracks. So the sport is evolving all the time, and you get to a point and you think, okay, well, what can we improve now to go faster? And I think that going faster isn't always the most interesting thing, that even though athletes are running faster, there's still the races are the thing that gather the interest. And so if you're running faster but you're still 10th best, it doesn't really change things. So I think you have to be able to be competitive as well as to be able to run fast.
Who was your toughest opponent and why?
What's that?
Who was your toughest opponent?
I had a few over different years. I think in the early 90s, I had a lot of battles with Yvonne Murray from Scotland, and you know, there was a number of races where they looked the same every time. I think once I got her number though, I just had to keep up, and I knew I could sprint faster. So I suppose it was a tough opponent, but you know, if I could get myself to keep up, then I knew I could beat her. And then after that, probably Gabriela Zabo. And the thing with tough opponents is that they bring out the best in you, and it means that when you turn up to a race, and whether it's a athlete you're running against or a team that you're playing against, you know when the best people turn up, that you have to be your best as well. And if you're not your best, then you probably run worse, worse than you're capable of. So you really have to be ready when the tough ones turn up.
Did you do the same training to build up to each bigger championships? And if not, do you wish you had?
No, I think you have to change all the time. I did some training the same, but yeah, I did the weight training I did in the gym was different all the time. It definitely supplemented my running training. And I changed my training from the early 90s to the late 90s because the intensity when I was younger was a lot harder, but if I was to keep going for longer, I had to change the training a little bit. So I had different coaches throughout my life. I had my original coach, Sean Kennedy, in Cove, and he gave me a really good understanding of training, so I knew why I was doing particular training sessions. So that really helped me. When I had my other coaches, Kim MacDonald in the early 90s, and he was all about running fast and putting on your spikes, and it was all really specific race preparation. But sometimes the intensity of that can wear you down. It feels like you're doing races in training, and you have to take the intensity out of it sometimes so that you can save the days when you need your head and your body to work together and to be really ready for the races. And that was when Alan Story, my coach, he gave me a lot of endurance type training throughout most of the year, and then we would top it up with a little bit of speed work before the really big races.
Very quick.
What were the driving factors that motivated you to pursue your ambitions?
Let me think. I think I just always wanted to be better, and I always wanted to challenge myself. I loved working hard, and I don't think I was scared of hard work. From a very young age, I did a lot of training by myself, and I think the thing that motivated me to go out and train hard was when I would go and run a race, and if I would win the race or if I would run a particular time, then I always felt that I could do better. I always felt I could run faster, I felt I could be better. And I mean, even now, I kind of think, well, if I was training now and able to run at the level I was, I can see things that I would have done differently. And you're just learning stuff all the time. And you're looking around at what other athletes are doing and trying to work out, well, how can I be as good as them? How can I be better than them? And just trying to find extra little things to do. And I think when you win races, when you run fast times, then you start to believe that what you're doing is right. But you're just always looking for extra little bits to be a little bit better.
Max Stone?
Nowadays in sports, there's a lot of emphasis on mental and psychiatry. Was there a lot of emphasis back in your days on the psychological part of running and its meant to prepare yourself for races?
Not kind of, we didn't talk about it a lot, but I think I was lucky in that I was able to manage it myself really well. I think I could block a lot of things out when I was going to a race and not be bothered by things. As long as I knew that I had done all the hard work, and I could I would meet with my coach, or would talk to someone like Jared, or my athletes who I looked up to, Frank O'Mara and Marcus O'Sullivan. We would travel to races together, and you'd have a discussion before the race about how I might run the race, and you just bounce ideas off of them, but in a very kind of normal, natural way. It wasn't a specific, let's have a meeting here and discuss. I like to do things quickly and have my mind made up what I was going to do. And if I was uncertain at all, then I would go and talk to somebody who I knew I could talk to and who would kind of set me at ease, and I would be able to say, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to get the best result, and then just put it away. And sometimes I would get a piece of paper and write it down, and just write down, how am I going to run this race, and what are the things that I'm good at here, and the athletes I'm racing against, what am I going to have to be ready for, and just to get a picture in my mind of what to do. But I didn't think about it too much. I wanted to think about it, have a plan in my head, and to be confident of that plan, and then be able to go to bed and sleep and not worry about it.
What kind of diet did you have to follow during training and leading up to competitions?
Which kind of diet?
Yeah.
Well, let me see. It was, I suppose I would always think it was a healthy diet, but I made it up myself. Nobody told me what to eat or what not to eat. I read a lot of books and a lot of fruit and vegetables, and yeah, I think it's one of those things, we're all very individual, and you have to figure out what works for you. And I went through lots of phases of different things and trying, different things that I thought worked, different drinks, and I think you just have to find what works for you in training, and then you carry that with you to the races, and you just stick with it, and then you get bored with that and you go and you look for something else. But I think just keeping things very, very simple, and there was no magic foods out there, though I did tend to eat the same things over and over again, before races, but yeah, scones were always a good thing for me before a race. A cup of coffee and a scone always, 3 hours before the race.
Or a classic last one, I think.
Do you feel like there should be more funding towards the track and field athletes in Ireland today?
More funding?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of funding. I think athletes receive a lot of funding in Ireland, more than most countries around the world. And I don't think, maybe they don't realise how much they've got. And I think people think they need more than they do. I think if you keep it simple, and I always believe that if you got results, then you would be rewarded. And that was how I always went through my whole career, was to work hard and to earn any funding or payment that I got.
Yes, Colin?
What age did you start running then?
I started running twice. I suppose I had two starts. I had a trial when I ran the community games when I was in primary school, and back then there was a lot of short 100 meters and long jump and things like that. I wasn't very good at it. And then when I was 14 in secondary school, I got to run, maybe actually when I was 12. So going into secondary school, I ran 800 meters, and as soon as it was 2 laps of the track, then I kind of found that, oh, if it goes a bit longer, I'm a bit better at this. And that was when I probably started to run more races and to do a bit more formal training. But to have a proper training program, I started when I was 15 years old. I went to the All-Irelands, and I won a silver medal in the 1500 and the 800 meters, and I didn't have a proper coach then. I went to the Ballymore Cove Athletic Club, and just ran around with my friends. And so when I came back from there, I thought, I think maybe I need a coach so that I can, you know, be better and to be a bit more consistent at this. And I'd heard of this guy, Sean Kennedy in Cove. You hear stories that he was a good trainer, and he used to make people run up the hills, and you know, he was pretty tough, cracked the whip, they'd say. And so I thought, that sounds like someone for me. And I looked up his name in the phone book, and I called him up, and I said, Sean, I think I need a training program. Do you think you could coach me? And he said, oh, well, I'd have to think about that now. I'd have to see what you're doing and what you'd like to do, and we'll go from there. And that was it. We started working together, and he got me to the point of going to the Olympics in 1992.
And last question for Greg Ash.
One of the longest standing records in most schools is your senior age unbeaten record, which is 35 years now. It hasn't been better, or equal even. So,
what is it?
Were you agree, or do you put it down to there being kind of a decline in schools that
What's the record? 210. Well, I didn't even know that. I think it's funny because when I was running in the schools races and you know, club races back then, I would say we never really focused on times. So times were not like they are now. Now athletes at a very young age, they're always chasing times and trying to break records and run PBs. And you know, as we all know, the weather in Ireland isn't always conducive to fast running. So for me, it was all about winning the races. And you know, I ran whatever time it took to win the race. There was never any chasing time. So it's a surprise to me that it's actually still standing.
Greg's heavily involved in the school athletics, so it's a loaded question, I fancy. Sonia, thank you very much indeed. That was
On behalf of all of us here, I think I would like to extend a massive thank you both to Sonia and to those who made Sonia's address possible. I think we all gained immensely from it. Sonia, it was both informative and, as importantly, it was entertaining, which I think, you know, we can all appreciate. The moment that stood out most for me was when Sonia said that if she had known that she was going to be fourth, she would have come in the top 3. So, you know, self-confidence is a great thing. It might not always help you win, but if it doesn't, at least you get to have a bit more fun.